Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Winona Earp. So in this episode, we have Winona going after the final Revenant, one of the seven that came after her family. And they can't really identify him. Only thing we've seen is like a cane that has like a specific symbol on it. It's kind of like a spade card on the top of it. That's kind of the only thing they recognize him by. We also had in this episode Dolls kind of leaving temporarily and leaving everything. It was kind of weird because we saw him kind of like getting all flirty and having fun with Winona. She's kind of like what's going on with you? Talking about ordering Chinese food and everything. But then he was like, oh, I'm gotta go, got some stuff to deal with. I'll be back soon and all. And basically he gets taken away. I initially was thinking like, okay, he's getting taken away because he's in trouble for what he did. Basically getting that medication he got last episode. I thought it was kind of ramifications for that. It's like, no, it's basically not, I don't know if she's necessarily his boss, or it sounds like she's someone, well, he makes it sound like she was recently promoted and she kind of has taken a position, excuse me, sorry. But basically she got him because Dolls hasn't shown any proof that basically he was supposed to kind of show them 3 months give them proof that basically there's something much more deeper going on here. Like, I'm trying to understand, is it because they don't believe that revenants are hitting it or they're in purgatory, or is it that, because, Bobo's kind of got his own criminal enterprise, and it's like, I'm guessing he was meant to go after that, but he's kind of hasn't really shown any results. But it's like, I don't get exactly what their problem is. I don't know, like the way to make it seem like, because they were like, oh, how much do your assets, Waverly as well as Winona actually know? Because I think she was alluding to the fact is that, there was that, Dolls had brought it up before. There was that specific town that found out about demons that was wiped out. That was the only way to keep, the world from finding out about demons. So I'm thinking like maybe she was going to push towards that. But basically, I'm like, that's what I'm trying to understand is whether they meant to say like, it can't be that they don't believe in revenants, obviously, because that's what this whole Black Badge squad is for. But it seems like he's currently the only one that's a part of it. Like, it does make me wonder, like, maybe the woman that visited him are actually other people outside of the Black Badge group. That basically they're confronting him because it's like, we want you to prove that revenants exist and this isn't just malarkey or whatever. And basically he talks about showing her something that's not a revenant or whatever, that it's something that's never been documented before. To me, I chalk that up to him talking about himself, like whatever he is. Because I will say this, like from the little limited research I've done, it seems like in Winona Earp, the comic book, that it's not specifically demons that like the group that they hunt is after. I think, have I brought this up before? Maybe I have, but I'll mention again. The fact is they hunt monsters in the comic book. It's not just tied to demons. So monsters exist in that universe too. So maybe that's what Dolls is. Maybe something, like I said, something happened to him in Kandahar, or maybe he was already a monster and maybe what happened in Kandahar just unlocked it. But he was talking about showing her something that hadn't been documented before. So I'm wondering like if he was going to turn himself in. Because there's probably only a few people who know about Dolls, like whatever he is. Probably only his higher ups, his superiors in Black Badge, but that's kind of the last thing we see of the episode of them in the episode. So, but another big part of this episode was Constance looking for her son's skull. Basically, she kind of tortured a blacksmith out of kind of revealing the location. It was very interesting because it seems like the blacksmith had access to magic just like the Stone Witch Constance, but it just seemed like maybe hers wasn't nearly as strong. She was able to prepare herself. She, circled herself with salt so that Constance couldn't, pass through it. And I do wonder what's that dagger for. I guess maybe Constance can't fully utilize her powers by herself, so she needs that knife as a means of channeling her power. Maybe that's the only thing I can really chalk it up to. We've really kind of got to see a different side of her power. Like, we got to see more of her powers in this episode. Because basically she was making the blacksmith choke, or maybe because like basically the blacksmith was trying to get to that water, so maybe she made it so that like she sucked up all the water in her body and she was kind of dying of dehydration. Like maybe she made her instantly dehydrate. Maybe that's what that was. I don't know. But she did come to warn Doc about like, okay, she's coming after Waverly. You need to get Waverly out of here. Here's the means of killing her, but you have to promise me you'll get Waverly out of here first. He makes the promise, but he doesn't act upon it because he's so dead set on revenge. He's been waiting so long for his revenge that he's not willing to miss this opportunity. So he ends up putting Waverly in danger, as well as her other friends that come to the party too, which they were the shittiest friends ever. Because Waverly wanted to kind of bring some normalcy to her life, because basically she's kind of been swept up in this like all her life ever since she was a little girl. And that basically, she's having an engagement party for her friend who was recently engaged, who got engaged. And basically not everyone showed up, but she kind of wanted, keep Winona away, because it's like, oh, holding on to her friends, but it's like, they're not worth holding on to, because in this episode you kind of saw it. She was just kind of like, I'm tired of the way you're acting. Because I mean, they even said crap like, oh, one of her friends was like, oh yeah, the murder house. She's like, it's not a murder house, it's my house. And it's like, oh, I'm just kidding. It's like, don't kid about some shit like that. It's like, it's very insensitive of you to say that, you asshole, because it's like, let's not forget her sister and her dad died here. So it's like, yeah, oh, murder house. It's like I was a moment she said, I was like, you suck, dude. Like, saying some crap like that, and even talking about the fact is calling, Winona like a weirdo. It's like, oh, I can't believe you decided to move in with your weird sister Winona. It's like, because basically, Waverly had always been kind of the outcast within the town too, because it's like, oh, everyone kind of looked at Winona as weird, but it's also because Waverly was her sister, because she was an Arab, that people kind of treated her like crap, a little bit like crap too, because it's like, oh yeah, you come from that weird Arab family too. Even getting on her about breaking up with her boyfriend, was his name Chad, from who she broke up with last episode, being like, oh yeah, but what about him? He was hot and stuff like this. And she's like, oh, what? He was an idiot, never listened to me, wasn't, the most understanding person. But she's like, I think she brought up the fact is that he's like the only person that looked past the fact is that she's an Arab and decided to date her, because essentially saying Arabs are undateable. But like I said, the Stone Witch showed up. I did kind of feel bad because that bitchy friend of hers did die. She got killed, had her neck snapped and brought back, which is very interesting to see. Like I said, in this episode, we really got a taste of what the Stone Witch is really capable of. And Waverly ended up leading to a very interesting conversation between Waverly and the Stone Witch, because the Stone Witch talked about the fact is that her sons, because I can only assume the way she's making it sound like the other body is another one of her children, were basically slaughtered by Wyatt Earp. But she was like, but if they were killed by Wyatt, they'd come back as revenants. She's like, revenants were humans, that's why they kind of come back. My children were something different. It's like, they're monsters too. And basically talks about the fact is that there's something out there greater than the revenants. There's a greater evil out there. And it's like, where does she stand in this whole situation? She's talking about the fact is that there's greater evil out there in the world that they don't know about. And it's like, but where does she stand in this situation? I can only chalk it up to she wants her sons back, and that's all she wants. She could care less about the world as long as she's got her sons back. So, but Waverly ended up smashing a skull, so I don't know if it's even possible. I mean, I'm sure she'll find a way, but it's like, how will she find a way? I don't know. But, we did have Waverly confronting Doc about that whole situation, because he's like, you were warned to, about this by the blacksmith, but you didn't listen. And she's upset. She's like, basically, because she brought up earlier in the episode, the fact is that Doc has a tail, and she tells him that his tail is the fact is that he always lies. He can never tell the truth. So that's, he constantly is pushing people away. And it's kind of sad, because she even brings up the fact is because you love Winona. He's like, I don't love Winona. It's like, on some level you do. Which to me, like I said, going back to the old dolls thing, it seems like dolls might have a thing for her too. And it's like, he obviously wants her to stay away from Doc, because he believes Doc is, bad influence and can only lead to trouble. But it's so very interesting. And on the flip side of this, we did see Winona kind of coming across the latest Revenant, and basically anytime she was in the presence of him, or at least was like one of his crimes or something, her nose would bleed. And it's like, why is that? Is that because they have like a deeper connection? Like, I don't know, like could that possibly mean? Like, maybe it was him on some level messing with her, or maybe it's just because he legitimately has some kind of connection to her, and the closer they get to each other, it's like that. I don't know. Or maybe like it's one of those situations with the more revenants she takes care of, the more of a backlash it puts on her body. So maybe when she actually does deal with the revenants, maybe she won't survive it or something. I don't know. That's how I interpret it. But we saw her and kind of Officer or Deputy Hot kind of bonding a little bit. They kind of bond over Waverly because it's like, obviously we know that Hot totally has a thing for Waverly, especially at the end of the episode where she kind of saw her waving to her and everything. But Hot kind of wanted to be brought in by it on everything, and Winona was kind of like, no, I'm not going to do that. And it basically, essentially, it's above her pay grade, kind of being like, oh, you're kind of just like a small time cop in this whole situation, so you don't get to know what everything is. But it seems like by the end of the episode that she was going to tell her everything. But, Doc did come across the police car that they were in. It looked like there was blood on the sides, and Winona and Officer Hot were both gone, so can only assume that they were either taken. I doubt it was the Stone Witch. It was most likely whatever that Revenant is. So. Which we also found out, well, specifically Doc found out, that when he shot the Stone Witch, apparently it left a similar wound on him, so any damage he causes to the Stone Witch will mean that he dies too, because their lives are intertwined. It did kind of come up in this episode because she was constantly wondering about it, and Waverly even went as far as asking her, like, why did she throw Doc down the well? She gave him immortality, but why did she throw him down that well for all that time? And it does make you wonder. It's like, I mean, also, what did Doc have to give up? Because like gaining that type of power, you kind of, even Doll said it early in the episode, you don't get that kind of power from angels. That type of thing is carried out by devils, essentially. So it's like, what kind of power, like, what did he have to offer in return for his immortality? Because basically, I was trying to remember what it was, but she was saying, like, he was loved by Wyatt. So maybe that's why, because he was so important to Wyatt, and because of what Wyatt did to her children, maybe that's why. I don't know. Maybe that was her way of trying to punish Wyatt that way. I don't know. I will say, it's kind of sad that at the end of the episode, Waverly did have at least one of the friends that went to the party kind of survived the whole altercation. The other one, like I said, sadly didn't. It is really sad when you think about the fact that she was engaged and everything, and she's dead now. I don't know. But at least the one that survived was the less bitchy one, because she brought up the fact is that Waverly was kind of there for her. Like, there was some boys that picked on her back in the day, and Waverly just came out swinging and, like, hit one of the leader of the kids picking on her, like, whacked him in the nuts to kind of settle that situation. So that was nice. But like I said, it seemed like, once again, Waverly didn't kind of bring Winona in on this whole situation again. Like I said, she was talking about, oh, Uncle, was it Curtis, left this to me, and didn't even tell her about the fact is that, what the blacksmith told her about someone coming after the skull. Like I said, I feel like that's what this is all leading up to, like, kind of eventually maybe a divide between the two, because it's like Waverly wants to be so important that she's, she was so dead sure that she was going to be the heir that she's willing to do anything to feel special. I mean, that's how I regard it, and that's how I'm looking at it. And it's kind of sad that she feels that she has to be like that just to feel special, that she has to keep stuff from Winona because she wants to handle stuff herself to prove that, like, in some shape or form, I feel like she's still trying to prove, like, oh, I deserve to be the heir, not Winona. And I feel like maybe that's going to lead to something later on. Maybe, like, there's going to be a point where Waverly ends up picking up Peacemaker and kind of showing that she can use it, and that might lead to a huge divide. Like I said, I don't know, maybe I'm just overthinking things. I think it'd be neat, but there's no telling if it'll ever be like that, so. But that's really all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.